Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It is our 2024 Caregiver Self-Care Series #1 webinar today, and we're thrilled that all of you are joining us from all over the place. The United States, all over the United States, Canada, Brazil, and a few other places outside of the US. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Dellann Elliot Mydland, President and CEO of the End Brain Cancer Initiative. And we're doing a caregiver series. We've been doing this for several years, and we're doing the caregiver series because we know how hard it is. Caregiving is hard work. And so we want to help today by maybe providing you some tools that you don't have, maybe providing you some contacts with experts as well as others who have gone through potentially what you are going through as well. So welcome. Let's get started. So for those of you who don't know, my late husband, Chris, and I actually co-founded the Chris Elliot Fund, which is who you know today as the End Brain Cancer Initiative. And we created the organization on May 18th, 2002, 3 weeks before he passed away from his glioblastoma. And so I know what it's like to be a caregiver, and I know how humbling it is. I know how exhausting it is. And I know that I definitely could have used more help. I really struggled. Our children were 3 and 6 at the time of his diagnosis. Actually, excuse me. Yes, that's correct. And boy, it was really something to add on to my already full plate. And I know I didn't have the tools, and I know I didn't have the resources. So today we hope we can provide some of those things for you. Rosalind Carter has a quote that I really appreciate, and I wanted to share it with you today. There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need a caregiver. That pretty much explains all of us. There is a caregiver's creed that the American Brain Tumor Association shares, and I found it really interesting. I'd like to share it with you today. Some of it is stuff we know, but we don't know how to do it. 1, take care of yourself. 2, I accept that caregiving includes the full spectrum of emotions, and these are valid and normal. 3, I ask for help and accept it willingly. I seek information that will empower me. I respect the preferences of my loved one. I accept that challenge is a natural part of caregiving. I celebrate the small successes and allow myself to grieve the disappointments. I forgive myself for my shortcomings, and I congratulate myself for the effort and love I put into caregiving on a daily basis. I wanted to share with you too, really quickly, a couple of things that people who registered wrote in that they wanted to share with everyone else. And this is their tips and their suggestions for caregiving. What advice do you have for other caregivers? You need 3 close people who you will bring in. 12 you will not bring in as far, and an army of people who will carry you through. I like that. It's true. Don't give up and get support. Social workers are experts in communications, and they are your best friend. They are the ones that help us, the caregivers, the most. We have a long-term care policy for my husband, and I waited until 18 months after his diagnosis when I was beyond exhausted and hard to know when to start it. Sometimes you only have 2 months with a person. My advice is if you have a long-term care policy, you should start it immediately. Good advice. Let's see here. Give yourself space and time to feel and to rest. Okay, we all know that, right? But how do you do that? We're going to talk a little bit about that today. Also do things that you like to do, that you love. Remember to take care of yourself. Your significant other is going to love you, even if he or she doesn't say it. Remember to always think the patient is still there, no matter what state he or she is in. And remember to say, I love you. Someone else wrote in, change doctors when you're not getting the care that you need or you deserve. Be grateful for every moment. Even the most difficult time is precious. Try to stay positive and always be your spouse's best advocate. Even if they don't have the energy to put into the research, do it for them and help them understand the significance and importance of never losing hope. So we've been doing our caregiver series for several years now, and we literally just in 2015, 16, 17, we started talking to industry. So industry is the pharma industry, the device industry, the diagnostic industry. And we started talking to them about the importance of supporting something to help caregivers of brain tumor and brain cancer patients. And we garnered a little bit of support to do that. And many, many years ago, we had several different caregiver self-care events, which were actually in-person events in the Pacific Northwest. And yes, we provided some tools, but we provided some pampering as well. And then, of course, COVID happened, and we started wrapping everything into our online world. And so today, we've moved into this webinar series for caregivers. So this is what you see today. On our website are past videos of different caregiver series that we've done. And there's a lot of really helpful information. So I just encourage you to go to our website, endbrainccancer.org, and go to meetings and events. And then you'll find our national caregiver events section. And there's lots of videos with helpful information in that. So please feel free to do that whenever you want. So today we're going to learn together. We're going to be inspired together. We're going to share and ask questions together. And we're going to gain tools and resources to help not only the caregiver, right, but help the patient. We know that if we can take better care of us as the caregiver, we definitely can take better care of our loved one, who is the patient. So join us today to do that. So we want to thank our industry partners for this particular session today, which is Novacure and Servier. Also, we're able to do this kind of program today from individual donors, as well as additional support from Triage Cancer, Caring Bridge, Great Purpose Productions, WIM Social, and Aware Coaching. And support often lends itself in time and expertise as well. So thank you so much to our supporters. And then I also want to, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. So obviously we run on donations, and there's all kinds of ways to support the work that we do and our national programs and our services. So you can always text EBCI to 366283. You can go to endbrainccancer.org anytime. There's donate buttons all over the place. Just click. You can use your phone right now and scan that QR code and make any kind of donation you'd like. We're always seeking corporate sponsorships as well. They really, really help us with all kinds of different events that we do, but also all programming that we do. And one of the things that we tell people too is if you're interested in creating a named fund for a loved one, just contact Sean Drennan. Sean at endbraincancer.org is our treasurer and also one of our board members. And we always encourage people to do fun house parties to raise dollars for us and have a lot of fun at the same time. So November is actually National Family Caregivers Month. And so we always try to do a caregiver series event in November. And this year, that event will take place on November 1st. And we are in the middle of putting that program together. So if there is a topic that you're interested in us bringing on an expert for our November series, be sure you let us know and communicate that to us, because if we can make it happen, we certainly will. We are opening up registration for our November 1st Caregiver Self-Care event. You can use the QR code to register, or of course, you can go to our website, or there is a URL right there in front of your screen. One of the things a lot of people aren't aware of is, besides all of our disease education awareness and outreach programs, we also offer something that we call Direct Connect. And I would like to introduce you right now to Shreya Prakash. She is our clinical research coordinator and patient navigator. She works right here in this office, same office as I do. We work very closely together. She has earned her bachelor's degree in molecular biology from the University of Washington. She's driven by her passion for patient-centered clinical research. And within our Direct Connect program, she assists patients, caregivers, healthcare providers, etc., in accessing accurate diagnostic information, arranging for second, third, fourth opinions with specialists, and identifying suitable clinical trials for research and for patients to participate in. So I wanted to, again, make everyone aware of those resources that we provide for free to patients, families, and caregivers. Shreya, what is your message for us today?
Thank you, Dellann. Hi, everyone. So today I just want to take this opportunity to share our patient resource center and caregiver resource center. So both these centers, I'll share my screen in a bit, but I just wanted to go over some of the resources, articles, informations we have for you that may be helpful for you as you go ahead in this journey of brain cancer. So in our EBCI's Caregiver Resource Center, we have resources for family caregiving. There are articles there. We have books, videos, and podcasts. We also have information focused on mental health for you, and financial and legal issues, because this is one of the main foreign information for most people, because this is something they don't really think about when they're introduced to brain cancer, but it's a very important topic that people, caregivers and patients need to discuss. And then also we have technologies for caregivers. These are new upcoming apps, maybe, or digital software that will help you in your role as a caregiver, maybe keep you organized and stuff. I will share my screen in a second, but I'll just go over briefly about our patient resource center before I share my screen, so I can show you where exactly on our website these information is. So in our patient resource center, we have information that's more specifically for the patients, like Medicare coverage for brain tumors, top 10 questions to immediately ask your doctor. We also have information about coping with your diagnosis, what is chemo brain, and we also have a huge glossary that I will share in a second that has information about terms or some words that may be foreign to you right now, but you can always look at it and see what they mean, and just maybe get more educated and informed about the whole brain cancer treatment. Sorry. Okay, so this is our EBCI homepage, and up here you have different tabs. for different things you're looking for maybe on our website. So under resources is where you'll find our patient resource center and caregiver resource center. You'll see they're right next to each other. So I'll show you the patient resource center quickly. So this is where you'll find a lot of different fact sheets, Medicare coverage, vital questions to ask. I know this is something some of our caregivers were looking for, some top 10 questions to immediately ask your doctor when you're faced with a brain tumor. So you can open this fact sheet and you'll see all this questions, suggestions that you should know about, information you can ask your doctor. This is okay, so this is the glossary that I was talking about. You'll see it's 34 pages, so there is a lot of information in here. I definitely recommend for you to go check this out and see all the different words that you may not be aware of right now, and the definitions are right there for you to see. And then let's see. Yeah, so these are all the fact sheets, all the resources under our patient resource center. And then we'll go to the caregiver resource center. This is the caregivers grid that Dellann mentioned earlier. It's from that we have on our patient caregiver resource center page. And here is the tabs that so we have divided all the information and resources based on different topics. So if you're looking for caregiving information, here's a lot of links for you to see what are some of the resources you can get for family caregiving. Then we also have a list of books, videos, podcasts for you, resources on mental health, financial and legal issues are here. And then also a list of technologies, devices, application, and some online tools that you can use to help you get organized better as a caregiver.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. Did you want to finish?
Gonna just let them know about let everyone know about the patient inquiry form. So I know I covered a lot of information, but if there's something that you're looking for that's not on there, you should always just reach out to me, fill out this patient inquiry form, and I will reach back to you and we can I'll help you get the information you need. So that was all. Thank you
so much. Can we put up Shreya's contact information again, just so in case you need it? There we go. You can also call Shreya. On your screen is her direct number, and you may also email her as well, Shreya@endbraincancer.org. She is a great resource for you. The other thing I would say, if you are in our caregiver resource center or our patient resource center and you see something that's not there, would you let us know that you would like to see information on that, or perhaps us to create a fact sheet on that particular topic? That's very, very helpful for us. Okay, thank you so much, Shreya. We're delighted right now to introduce everyone to our keynote speakers, Jason and Tracy Binder. And boy, this is a really interesting topic. They founded Aware Coaching, and it's dedicating to helping couples survive and grow from the trauma of brain cancer. In February 2022, Tracy was diagnosed with glioblastoma and with a primitive neurocomponent, GBM, PNC, a rare and aggressive brain cancer. Despite the daunting prognosis, Tracy and Jason faced this challenge with unwavering faith, resilience, and community support. Their journey through multiple surgeries, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, and the emotional toll of the diagnosis has profoundly shaped their approach to their marriage and parenting. They understand the immense strain a brain cancer diagnosis can place on relationships and are committed to providing the support and tools necessary to navigate these challenges, which a lot of times people don't really talk about this topic. And so I'm really happy today that the End Brain Cancer Initiative can bring you, make you aware of aware coaching and make you aware of Jason and Tracy's tools that they're going to provide all of us today. Welcome.
Thank you, Dellann.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the invite and the opportunity. It's happy to be here. Sorry about that. All right, we're ready. So I'm Jason.
Tracy.
And we're really excited to be here and talk a little bit about our story and talk a little bit about how we use our life coaching background to not only work on our own marriage, but we'd love to be able to also shepherd and shoulder with those who need what we know, and just be there as a support to do some of those hows. So like as Dellann said, like we all know the thing, but the how and the execution of that thing is sometimes a blind spot. So back up, all of us who have had brain cancer, there was a life before that, right? The life that, as we grieve, we don't get back in the same way we had. That's still hard. So in 2020, this was us, 2 years or almost 2 years before the diagnosis. This pretty much represents the chaos and crazy of our family. We don't necessarily pose well. This is probably the best picture we got.
I should say this is amazing.
Yeah. And Tracy's always the star, so she looked great in this. And we would have been married 20 years in 2020. We decided and felt called to make adoption part of our story. So we had 4 biologic kids.
And yesterday we got from the court in Wake, we got the final. Like he's on his way.
It's going to finalization. Only 4 short years since this happened.
Yeah.
That's been under the current as well.
Yes.
We decided to buy 15 acres on the edge of Greensboro that was just briars and garbage, and create our dream house and farm. And as it says at the bottom, rich, full, and fast. So a full-time husband, full-time dad, now we're 5 with a newborn. At that point, it was 20 years in pharma, so clinical research in oncology and digital health was where I spent a lot of my time. I was an elder at church. I was a life coach among couples, men, in terms of marriage recovery. And to talk about you?
I was a full-time wife, mom, life coach, cross-country coach, a runner. I did it all.
How many cross-country teams were you coaching?
I coached 2. It was amazing.
And how many miles a week were you running?
A lot.
Our puppies just came in the door. Our children had one job.
Sorry.
But yeah, so you can see like active family, definitely we had lots going on. We had a lot of dreams too that we intended to live out, right? And then on February 6th, 2022, and I had to put that was 29 months ago. So like, yeah, that's right. That aggressive brain cancer was a 9-month prognosis. I had COVID. She was having headaches. She thought she had COVID. On that Sunday, I took a family to church with us who had never gone before.
And I decided to go to a kind of hospital.
Yeah, like a local ER clinic.
And they didn't even have anything. They had like a CAT scan, I think.
Yeah.
And they scanned me and they were like, we think you have something in your head. And I'm like, what? So they kept my IV in. They had me call Jason, and here we are.
Yeah. So this was less than 6 weeks after moving into that house. You spent a year painstakingly designing in every little detail with all that life unpacked. And we were faced with this. I got this phone call and I was like, oh, I got kids, I'm going to the doctor because they found something. I don't know what it is, but we will be sure um, to let you know as we go on and keep you in the loop. Um, as this happened, the primary emotion was definitely numb. I got a lot of background noise. Yes, let me just ask the children to take the shot. But numb was the primary feeling. And I tried to ask ChatGPT because I'm figuring out how to use that. What does numb look like? What does numb feel like? And I thought this was a great representation. Isolation, you know, um, blurriness, a sea ahead of you that's uncharted. These were all the main feelings of numb that I experienced as we journeyed into this. And because I had several community circles, and we'll talk about how to do that in a minute, I reached out to my community within AstraZeneca. So I was an employee of AstraZeneca that does lots of oncology R&D. And I reached out to the head of commercial, the head of R&D, the CEO, who's one of Time 100, the head of clinical operations in oncology. These are all presidents, SVPs, and said, hey, we got looks like we have a brain tumor. We don't know what it is. Who do I need to talk to? And within minutes, those people had already connected with other people, and we had the folks that do the Clinical Research Institute, the Friedmans on the radar, and then through our church circles, we had a fellow in one of our community groups who had worked with the brain surgeon Wake, and within less than 24 hours, we were on his calendar. And we met with him and he spent an hour with us. So the community that I had, I leveraged by asking questions and seeking guidance and help. All right, so sorry.
I'm so sorry about that.
One job. So this is the bit of the story in terms of 2022, we in that local hospital, I asked questions like, well, what do you think she needs? And like, oh, she needs brain surgery. And, and I was like, oh, what's that entail? And he had the audacity to talk about how big the scar would be and where it would be. And then I asked him, well, how long have you been doing this? And he said about 6 months. And at that point I knew we needed to run. And we did. And like I said, we had Duke, we had Wake, both in our backyards, large academic research institutions that have the expertise, especially as something as abstract as brain cancer has to be something that the community knows needs to be the point. And I know that everyone will have access to that, but that's an important thing I'd want to make sure to convey to you all. So why don't you talk a little bit about what our journey was in treatment?
Yes, surgery 1. That came 10 days after February 6th. And that was great for 3 weeks. And then 3 weeks later, surgery number 2 came.
Yeah. So the reason that happened was, and in rare disease, diagnosis is a very challenging thing. I was surprised by that. I didn't realize that. The surgeon told me he would diagnose bedside. And he called me and said, yeah, I've done the pathology. I don't know what it is. It looks like it might be that, the GBM with the PNC or PNET. And, but he didn't want to concern me because that's not what he could absolutely say. But that was also the worst possible outcome. So we prayed for every other outcome that this could be. And while we waited for them to do the pathology, the tumor recurred. And while we had geared ourselves up for surgery 1 and felt like we beat it, surgery 2 took every piece of energy out of our soul. So they rushed her right into radiation.
Yep. Within days.
Days.
Yeah.
And you had 30+ rounds of brain and spinal cord radiation.
That was awful.
What were some of the impacts of radiation?
It took all my taste away. It took everything tasted like metal. It was awful.
Yeah.
Nothing I could say great about it. And it kind of took you down.
Yeah. Do you remember that summer?
No,
How was your appetite?
awful.
How many pounds did you lose?
15.
15 pounds. And we finally just gotten back to pre-cancer weight, 29 months later.
Exactly.
And we got something just appeared in our My Chart one day, and it was our diagnosis. Mayo Clinic had done a genetic test and identified the tumor as molecular glioblastoma with peanut features, or PNC. And then obviously, because I have the awareness of oncology and R&D and started doing the research, that was the last time I ever did that, because the data was so poor and there was such a small subset of data that it wasn't anything that was going to be giving hope. So I chose at that point for us that we were not going to be part of the median, and we were going to continue to fight. And she's a fighter. So talk about chemo.
We had 6 rounds of chemo. There was 1 each month. It was like for 5 days, I think.
Temidor, yeah.
Yeah. And did pretty good. And then I hit like 3rd day and I was done
Yeah.
for like, 4 or 5 days. And then it came back up. So it was kind of like this.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the middle there, I got an Optune.
Before that,
Oh, before that.
in the first round of chemo, what happened to you?
Oh, I got shingles. Forgot about that.
She got shingles.
I kind of forgot about
What was more painful, 2 brain surgeries or shingles?
shingles.
Right. And this,
And Tracy, I
Yeah.
want to let you know of the time. And I know you've got also some really interesting, helpful tools to share with us today. So I want to make sure we do get to those.
Okay,
Yes.
no problem.
no worries. We're going to transition now. So this is a little bit about our story. And then what we decided was, as we came into 2024, what was going to be our purpose, right? And we had this life coaching background. I finished seminary. I wanted her, she was coming back into energy and Tracy. So we thought about supporting marriages again that went through brain cancer. And as we did the research, we realized that, when she's the patient, and whatever couple this is, the rate of divorce and separation is 6-fold. Like, that's massive. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, what are the dudes doing? And it suggested that there was a lack of commitment. I think it's a lack of coping. And then that's where we can come in with coaching and helping that. And it even says that, if you can identify the discord and you can bring in life coaching, not only do you keep families together, but there's a quality of life and a quality of care and health outcomes that are connected to that, which shouldn't be underestimated. So what is the thing that we're going to focus on to keep marriages together? It's around emotional intimacy, right? Because the emotions are going to be sky high. The emotions are going to be really low. It's going to, grief is going to sideswipe you and blindside you, and you're not going to know which way is up. But what you need to be able to do is articulate where you're at, because the greatest need, besides being healed of brain cancer on a daily basis, is to be fully known and fully accepted within yourself and with your spouse. And you can't really enter into that if you can't articulate it. So we teach folks how to connect your feelings to your circumstances. And then also how, and in doing so, when your spouse begins to articulate those things, you can connect more deeply. Because as you go through life and you go through brain cancer, it's easy to kind of start just being the caregiver and not doing the connections and just meeting the physical needs and getting the right doses of the thing. And and then you just kind of start separating, and then you're on parallel tracks. And then eventually there's a big gap. And in that gap of frustration as a caregiver, You can have bitterness sprout, right? And I'm sure we all can feel those things when you're just so frustrated. And then resentment can happen. And obviously, she never intended to have breast cancer, but this is the human nature that we have, is like kind of that why me, right? So what are the tools we give you? The greatest tool we ever had, and I have one on my wall, and she gave one to me years ago. That was this one, but on the other side, she put fine, sure, and good, because that was my emotional language. I had 3 words, and then got frustrated if she would push on that even further. But we teach folks to be able to articulate the emotion you're having in the situation you're in, identify shame as feeling overwhelmed incompetence. Would you imagine you could when you're, I just saw the stuff that Shreya put on there. There's so much content to consume. You're going to feel stupid about what's going on, and you're going to miss the right question at the right time. Insignificance, it's just you and your family against these huge health systems. And like, how do you have a voice? You're going to feel really small. And that's going to also be some of that shame that makes you feel like it's impossible. And then lastly, the data sucks. So you're going to feel powerless to change that. So between those 3 naming those shames, we can then translate that into, what do I need? Well, I need peace. Well, what do I need? I need acceptance. I need reassurance. I need a break. And sometimes what this does in terms of brain cancer, whatever was already underneath the surface is just going to get exacerbated. And if that's unhealthy coping mechanisms, those are going to get really big. So we suggest finding deeper, healthy intimacy with God, within yourself, and with others in a way that allows you to have healthy coping, because this journey is hard. So moving right along. This was what life looked like. So like I put the schedule in the top left, and I had antibodies just looking at it because I can't do schedules anymore. I literally like shut down when someone's asked, what time should we do that? But these are all the different activities that we had going on for our 5 kids. It was triathlon, soccer, and gymnastics, and we were going to church, and we had all the checkups at the hospital that's 30 miles away, and they had to go to school and do their homework, and someone had to help them. And like Tracy said, the adoption was still kind of slowly meandering. So this is where the 3 and 12 come from. So this is a faith-based theological approach in terms of Jesus having the 3. So he's got John, James, and Peter are the ones he's closest to, that he asks for prayer, that he brings them the transfiguration, that they are living life day to day, minute to minute, and that's where, besides your spouse, they're getting all the details. So I got 3 guys, I'd be texting them, hey, today's terrible, I feel this way, or today's great, keep praying. Like, they knew what was going on with me, they were checking in on me, and they were my 3. And then our 12 was a community group that we had within church, a group that we had within all the sports and with schools. And those 12, they multiplied each other. So I had the 3 who were just keeping me afloat, keeping me pointed up. Tracy, you had 3 as well, right?
I had 3, yeah.
And who were those?
Anna, Charlotte.
And they were like your running buddies,
Yeah.
and you did the same thing with them, right?
Yes, it was great. Yeah.
So you need to have the 3, and those are the people you're going to bring in the most. Those are the ones going to point you towards health, empathize. And then those 12 are the folks that, we built this new house that had 800 feet of mud to the main road. A truck just showed up and started laying gravel. Like, it's probably over $10,000 of gravel and different types of getting it the right layout, the right crown. They just did it. We had a stick barn that wasn't done in the backyard. Carpenter just came out and finished it. We didn't ask. We were napping while these things happened. I put lift on here. More of like, people took our kids to school, they brought them home, they took them to practice, they brought them home. Like, that lasted for over a year. I just gave one of the moms like, yeah, please just schedule it. And I had to trust that they would not take advantage. I felt very vulnerable that I just didn't know where my kids were all the time, but I had to trust that the people in my 3 and 12 could take care of our family. And then the meal train, people made meals and lunches and dinners for us for months and months and months, which means that Tracy doesn't like what kind of food anymore.
Chicken.
She doesn't like chicken. She doesn't like Mexican because we're gluten-free and everyone believes that's Mexican, so can't even smell that anymore. And I've got diapers on here. One of the schools has brought us, a year's worth of diapers. So that's the 3 and 12. How do you get the community? You have to be plugged in somewhere. We were plugged in at church, we were plugged into our activities, we were plugged into the school, and then we had to ask for help. And people want to meet the need. You just have to give them the entry to that.
Jason and Tracy, it's time for questions and discussion from our audience. I have a question, if I may ask it. Also, I just wanted to remind everyone, if you would like to use your chat session, I will monitor that and I will provide the comment or the question as well. But can I go back, please? Because I know this is a very important topic and you're planning to help couples talk together and talk about and discover that love language, right? But something you said is really important and I don't want to leave it off the table. We need to be able to call out our shame. I want to talk about that a little more. Shame, we know what shame is, but what do you mean when you say we need to be able to call out our shame?
Yeah. It's those 3 things around overwhelming incompetence, high insignificance, and impotence or powerlessness that overwhelm you in those moments. Because those are the things that are going to trigger something in your past story that's going to drive you to those negative outcomes, those negative coping things. That's not going to bring you two together. It's going to put you apart. And that's for her as the patient and me as the caregiver. Like, I want her to be dumping that emotion out. We want to put grief on the table and see it for what it is and not let it rule us. So that's what I mean by shame.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering about, to be honest, in a marriage or not even in a marriage, sometimes when you're diagnosed with brain cancer, both the patient and the care partner, caregiver, spouse actually does feel shame. Do you address that when you're counseling couples?
Absolutely. I mean, I have to get them to figure out how to know that that's even happening. Sometimes it's hidden from them. It's a specter, it's a shadow. That's why our coaching is more, it's not just us having a set of skills. We have the story too. And we know, I know when I see it, I can figure out the words that they're using. It's just like, I just can't figure this out. And I always feel so dumb and like, oh, okay. Like there's a shame moment. Let me help pull that thread a little further and then let you know, yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And maybe some of that shame, if I'm listening to you correctly, is just lack of information and it's lack of confidence too, because this is new.
Absolutely. And then the tall order of navigating the system, you have to wait for hours sometimes and just feel like no one cares about your time. Who cares that, she's feeling so ill just even being there. And then you get the MRI and you have to wait for the results and you're powerless to what it's going to say. And then it comes back and says, it could be nothing and it could be something. So, make sure you watch that space.
Yeah.
You also said we need to strengthen healthy coping habits. Okay, so we need to strengthen healthy coping habits. How do we do that?
So first, maybe let's define unhealthy. So a lot of folks, may be going to a screen or a bottle or a substance or, allowing an emotional boundary to be broken by having someone just be nice to them, right? So those are some unhealthy things to watch out for. Healthy coping for you is what?
I don't know, running.
Running, exactly, yes. Running. Healthy cooking for me is going out to the farm and watching the clover grow and seeing how the rotation's going, walking the dog, taking my kids to activities. Like those are life-giving things to me. It takes energy and effort, but it's life-giving. So those are healthy coping. Other ones can be, from a spiritual perspective, prayer, scripture, those are things that are important to us. We're in a community group of other believers who share their own struggles. And we think about, physical, you talked about running, eating well, things like that are all good coping mechanisms. And those can be things that we, maybe do too much of. So you have to have a moderation to that, but that's what we think about.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. You have a slide, 5 things you can do today to strengthen your marriage. Would you mind putting that up? And we'll talk about those super quick if we could,
Yes.
the items on that slide. I
All right. So the 5 things you can do, so translating the well duh to how, an emotional journal. So we have the tool with the feelings wheel. 3 times a day, you go into your journal, you write, oh, what's my primary emotion? Use the wheel because it'll be really hard. You'll be surprised how hard it is. Write down what it is, and then try to figure out what the why is. What's the circumstance going on? Do that when you get up, do that at lunch, do that before you go to bed. Second is finding your 3 and your 12. Like, do you know who you're like for men, for husbands that are caregivers? Who are your dudes? Who are your dudes who are keeping you straight, who are loving you and need to be loved with hugs and haymakers? And then how are you connected? And not everyone who goes through brain cancer is going to be able to get out there and have social experiences, but like we got to figure out how we can expand those people supporting you, like the army that we talked about. And then grief, we got to be able to identify it, right? So those shame feelings connected to what those grief feelings. I always think bargaining around grief is the one that just totally disorients folks. And, got to be say, this is how I'm feeling. This is the grief that I'm going through right now. Let's talk about that. Finding a coach or a counselor who can teach you these things, who can show you these things, and then can empathize in their own story and show you their story so they can apply yours. And then, praying. So like I prayed a ton when we first got diagnosed, and obviously you're a prayer warrior. Now my prayers are just like, please heal her, Lord. And I've got armies of people who are praying and praying and praying, but for me it's like I've kind of prayed myself out. So those are the 5 things I think you could do tomorrow.
thank you so much, Jason and Tracy. Will you put up your very last slide, please? This is contact information for both Tracy and Jason. They have an amazing website. I do encourage everyone to check it out. That in front of you is also Jason's email address. And I'm curious, you talked about the emotional feeling wheel. Is that something you came up with, or did you find that someplace?
Oh, that's been out there for years. So it's not our work. But it's the greatest tool that most people have is like when you ask someone how they're doing, they say good, they say fine. And
Yeah.
then when you say, well, how are you really doing? Silence. They don't have
Okay. Okay. I really want to see that wheel. And is the backside blank? I know that Tracy wrote your top 3 feelings on
Yeah.
it on the backside, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, it's just one side.
Okay. I'm gonna get that wheel. I want to see that.
You can
I
look it
want
up anywhere on Google.
Yeah.
What was that?
You can look it up anywhere on Google. Yeah.
Okay. I want to thank both of you, first of all, for sharing your story, right? And secondly, sharing your family with us. And you guys have quite the story. I love that you want to help others, other couples, through their adventure, so to speak, through brain tumors and brain cancer. And so I just thank you for stepping up and wanting to help. Their information is right in front of you on the screen. please feel free to reach out to both Tracy and Jason at any time. They're willing to help do some counseling. And that counseling is free of charge right now, right?
Yeah, our coaching is free to any couple that has a brain cancer diagnosis. And the way we do that is we work with larger organizations who can invest in that time on behalf of those folks.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Apologies for the few interruptions.
Oh, it's okay. That's life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would like to introduce everyone now to Susan Kerber. Susan leads the partnership team at CaringBridge and works with partners who serve family caregivers and patients. Partners include hospitals, specialty clinics, nonprofits such as the American Cancer Society and ARP. Susan has a background in brand, digital engagement, marketing, and new business development. And I asked Susan to speak today because CaringBridge is an amazing tool. But a lot of us don't fully understand how vast that tool is under CaringBridge. And so it'll be really, really awesome for all of us to learn together how CaringBridge helps to connect people. And remember, we were talking about grow your support, your top 3 support and your other group, right? One of the ways is to utilize CaringBridge to do that. So let's welcome Susan.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here today.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Let me share my screen.
Thank you, you guys. It takes teamwork, right?
Sometimes it does, especially with technology. So as I was saying, CaringBridge is a 27-year-old nonprofit health platform that really surrounds family caregivers with support while they care for a loved one on a health journey. And CaringBridge is absolutely free. We are a donor-supported nonprofit. We were founded in 1997. And the organization offers tools to share and document a health journey, simplify care coordination, and really connect caregivers with a supportive community. And on top of it, CaringBridge addresses feelings of overwhelm, isolation, and loneliness, and improves emotional health and social connectedness. And we do have some research that we have done that I'll share in this deck that speaks to that. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we're a 27-year-old nonprofit. We were started when Mark Zuckerberg was 13 years old. And if you're still sort of struggling trying to grasp what CaringBridge is, if you think about something similar to a private Facebook page, only way better, because we don't share data, we don't sell advertising, there's no extraneous content. Really, people own their own page and they get to share out their health journey and they determine who sees the page. So 27 years ago, our founder, Sona Mary, got a call from good friends who had just given birth to a premature baby, baby Bridget. It really didn't look like baby Bridget was going to live very long. So they asked her to do what everybody did back then, which was call other family and friends and let them know. She did that for 3 or 4 days and shared updates on baby Bridget and became completely overwhelmed with trying to share the same information with everyone at the same time. So she went down to the basement of her home and she coded up the first CaringBridge page. And that page was called Caring for Bridget. Bridget did not survive, but her parents have remained steadfast donors and volunteers to CaringBridge. And every year when we have our anniversary celebration, they celebrate with us and we all cry because we all remember the importance of baby Bridget and the incredible legacy that she has left behind. Next slide, please. So who is CaringBridge for? Well, CaringBridge is really for the patient. You know, that's who we ultimately serve. But when you think about it, who's the person who's actually taking care of that patient? that is the family caregiver, and they are often the primary communicators. And what does the family caregiver need? They need support. And what does CaringBridge allow? It allows them to get the social, the emotional, and the instrumental support. On CaringBridge, it's really easy to ask people to help with daily tasks like cut the lawn, walk the dog, pull the weeds in the garden, whatever it may be. And I'll show you the platform in a few minutes. So CaringBridge is really for any health condition. Even people who are pregnant will start a CaringBridge page. The value of CaringBridge is it just helps you be in control of all the communications that you want to share around your health journey. The number one reason CaringBridge is used is cancer, and breast cancer is on top of that. It's also used for cardiovascular, stroke, infant childbirth, aging, hospice and palliative care, surgery, transplant, amputations, injury, trauma, neurological, congenital, and immune. So again, it can really be used for any acute or chronic health condition. I like this slide because it really speaks to the impact that CaringBridge has. 144 million visits annually, 5.5 million comments on pages surrounding a loved one with support, 320K daily visitors to CaringBridge pages. Every 12 minutes, a CaringBridge page is started. 72% of pages are started by a family caregiver, and 90% of our funding comes from the donors who experience CaringBridge firsthand, who pay it forward for the next family, with the average donation being $50. We do have a donation widget on CaringBridge. We do ask for donations, but we're cognizant that we can't do that all the time. So we also have a very strong email program where we share out practical health information, information that provides social and emotional support. So really, CaringBridge does an excellent job just kind of surrounding that family caregiver and that patient with the support that they need. This gets at the caregiver difference. And so, as I was saying earlier, kind of what are some of the things that separates CaringBridge from some of the other social network platforms that are out there today? There's no cost, there's no advertising, data is never sold. The author and the family controls who views the page. We have 3 privacy settings, and I'll take you through those as well. We're a nonprofit focused only on health journeys, acute to chronic. We get asked all the time by pharma, by different nonprofits, by for-profit companies to be able to advertise on CaringBridge. And for 27 years, we have said no, and we will continue to say no. We're private and secure way to activate a support community. And on top of it, we have a live, compassionate customer care team who is standing by in chat, text, email, phone to answer anyone's questions, to help someone set up a CaringBridge page if they're confused by it. It's super easy, though. It only takes a couple of minutes. But it's wonderful to have this team of people who can interact with our families. So feelings of being overwhelmed, isolated, and lonely are prevalent among family caregivers and the loved ones that are on a health journey. We have done research that substantiates this and demonstrates how CaringBridge can help people. So this was research that we did with Archangels in 2021, which is a caregiver advocacy group. And when Archangels compared CaringBridge survey findings to the national trends, they found that caregivers feeling like someone is in their corner, they're going to feel 1.6 times greater if they're using CaringBridge. Feeling connected to family, they're going to feel 3 times greater. Not feeling manipulated or resentful, 3 times greater. And oftentimes I get asked, what does that mean? Well, I was the family caregiver for my mother, and my siblings kept saying, you got it, you got it, you don't need us, you've got it. Well, I didn't have it, and I needed them. And when you have a CaringBridge page and your family and friends can kind of see firsthand with the health posts that are being posted, what you and your loved one are going through, it's much easier for them to say, you don't have it, and I'm here to help. And it's easy too on Caring Bridge for the caregiver to say, these are the types of things that I need help with. And on Caring Bridge, you can accept it. And the caregiver can see that that's been accepted. So we also did research in 2023, I think it was in fourth quarter, we did an email survey, and we don't really do a lot of research with our users because we want them to really focus on healing and we don't want to get in the way of that. But on occasion, we do research. And so this particular research, we found out that there's a 4-time improvement of feeling less alone after 6 months of using Caring Bridge, and a 2-time more sense of purpose being a caregiver after using Caring Bridge with the research that we did. So the platform overview. So Caring Bridge moved to a new platform. We moved journaling and posting, journaling and commenting, excuse me, we call journaling today posting. So posting and commenting moved to the new platform in February, and then we migrated the rest of the platform over at the end of June. So Caring Bridge has a very different look and feel today. And one of the reasons we updated our branding was we wanted to be more inclusive of everyone. Caring Bridge still includes many of the features families love, but one of the things we've done is we've just made it easier to activate a support community from your page. So really a family never has to leave their page. They don't have to use the navigation bar to go to the ways to help. The ways to help now is pulled in and comes to them. In the coming months, we'll be adding more resources for families. One of the things our CEO, Tia Newcomer, really wants to solve for is social determinants of health. So we are developing relations. We have a relationship with GoFundMe, and it's been a relationship in place for 10 years, and they've been an amazing organization for us to work with. We also have a strong partnership with Mealtrain. We are still working to add them to the new platform, but Mealtrain is heavily used by our families. And in the past, 25% of our families have used GoFundMe. We are adding additional partners, Instacart Health. We're adding gift cards. We're also adding HealthWell, which is a wonderful nonprofit. It's a foundation that provides grant money for people on a cancer journey. The amounts are anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000, and it's primarily for people who are on a lower income. So we're adding them as a partner. So we really want Caring Bridge to be a place that is going to be able to support people financially, with transportation, and with food. And I think that's it. I covered it. I already said today we offer GoFundMe. The privacy settings, we put this in place about, I think it was maybe 8 years ago, when Facebook had their first security breach, but we didn't want that to happen to our users. So today, our users get to select who sees their site, and you can toggle back and forth between these at any point in time. The one that is most heavily used is the one in the middle. And what that is anybody who has registered on Caring Bridge can see your site, and they can comment on your site. But if you're not really ready for that, and you think maybe you just want to test it and experience it with a few people, you can keep it on private. And then you can decide who sees your site, and it's easy to just share out the URL to your site and email. There's also a curated Caring Bridge email that will pop up, and you can add the URL to it. You can share it in a text message if you want. And yes, so either with private, you can either invite someone or they can reach out to you and ask to be included. And then if you're really interested, say, sometimes when a police officer's been shot and there's a need to raise a lot of money for medical expenses and it's very public, those Caring Bridge pages will be searchable in browsers and will be able to be found on social media. And the media will follow them as well. It just gives those families an opportunity to raise more money for medical expenses if they've started a GoFundMe campaign. So it's really easy to manage a page. It can all be done from the left side of the Caring Bridge page. So you create a post to share your health updates. You can add photos. You can add a co-author, which is just a wonderful thing. So a co-author has the same rights as the author, and these are oftentimes the most heavily commented sites because you have two people that are sharing in the responsibility of posting health updates. You can share the page, you invite visitors to the page by sharing the URL or sending a curated email, as I mentioned, and then page settings. You can name the page, change the privacy settings, and view a list of visitors to your page. So Caring Bridge meets the emotional and functional needs of caregivers through 4 types of posts. So we have these different icons that will show up in your posts when a visitor actually comments. So updates, this is when somebody shares a post. Not when a visitor actually comments, but you can share how you feel. Your status updates or news from medical professionals. Stay connected and keep loved ones informed and connected throughout your health journey. Milestones, you can share significant moments in your health journey, such as important appointments or reaching recovery milestones. Requests, this is where you can actually share what kind of support you need. And then tributes, this is where a donation to Caring Bridge can be made. So Caring Bridge really is a community coming together to offer support, healing, and love. The author requests or co-author can ask for emotional support and help with functional support right from the post, as I've mentioned. And I've talked about GoFundMe and Meal Train and the fact that we're adding other resources to Caring Bridge as well. And visitor support, visitors can comment and offer emotional support and respond with an emoji. They can also respond to help with functional support, as we talked about too. And we also have a resource section on Caring Bridge. So there's all sorts of articles in the resource section, expert advice on practical tips and helpful recommendations. There's inspiration. There's all sorts of stories from families that have used Caring Bridge on a health journey. Those are really the most popular stories that are read, and just all kinds of different content that is emotionally uplifting to our families is available in the resource section. And that's it. And you can reach out to me if you have any questions, or I can answer questions now.
Thank you, Susan, so much. Wow, awesome. I personally have used the meal train for many friends in need as the organizer, and it just works really slick. It's really fantastic. Can you talk a little more about the other tasks, right? How do you organize somebody to pick up the kids, somebody to pick up the dry cleaning, somebody to take my loved one actually to a doctor's appointment if I couldn't? Where do we go for that, and how does that work?
You actually do that right in your posts.
Oh, okay.
And one of those icons will show up depending on what you're requesting, and people can accept it. We actually had a planner on Caring Bridge, but no one used it because people already had planners and they didn't want to have another planner. So oftentimes people will just copy it and drop it into their planner that they already have existing. But there is a way on Caring Bridge for you to actually click a button and look at all the requests that you've made and who has raised their hand and said that they would help with that request.
Okay, that's fantastic. Quick question. Can you talk a little more about Caring Bridge's email program of support and resources?
Yes, Caring Bridge sends out 2 emails a month. They're called engagement emails. Oftentimes we'll share resources, or we'll share some of the stories that we have in our resource section. We also have an area for a partnership spotlight, so we can share that as well. It's usually like a 25 to 50 word description with a link. going to a website or to a resource page. We are global in nature. And so we do ask that whatever resource you share, that it be available nationally.
Excellent, excellent. I have some more questions, but I really would like to open it up to those that are joining us today. If you have a question, unmute yourself and ask Susan or put it in the chat box. Okay, and while we're doing that, your live customer care team. So they have the ability to use phone, text, and chat, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So like what kind of questions come into that team?
Questions will come in, I'm having a hard time logging into my CaringBridge page.
Okay.
I posted something and now I'm not sure that that's really what I want to say. They're not, not seeing the fact that there's a delete button, so they can edit and delete anything
Okay.
that's been posted.
Mhm.
So sometimes we just have to remind them of that.
Okay. Okay. So technical assistance for the platform, correct?
Yeah, and I will say a lot of the times it's just user error. They're not they're not seeing what's right there. Sometimes we all do that, right? When we're using technology.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
sometimes it
completely.
you just need
I hear you.
a
Oh,
friendly.
yeah, I hear you. Some of the comments that have come in to just right now are, our friends used CaringBridge when there was an awful car accident within their family. It was very helpful. Thank you, Susan. This was very helpful and something I have been considering using. I definitely would encourage everyone to use CaringBridge. It's a fantastic platform. One of the things that personally, when I'm looking at CaringBridge for someone I know, right? A page has been set up for them. One of the most inspirational things that actually helped me as a friend is reading the comments. So I can't imagine, on the flip side, I actually can't imagine how wonderful it is to receive those comments. But even as a friend, reading the comments just is uplifting and encouraging. So I really appreciate that. Another comment is, thank you, Jason and Tracy, for your inspirational journey. You are in my prayers. Thank you, Susan. My husband uses it all the time to encourage cancer patients. So that's really great.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we
you.
also got a thank you to the End Brain Cancer Initiative for creating such an uplifting and informative webinar. Our pleasure. Thank you so much. The question on the author, you can have 2 authors or more.
You can have 2.
Okay.
You can have an author and a co-author.
Okay. Okay. And then, how's it work on the GoFundMe page? How does it work? Is there a, I'm just a novice about GoFundMe, so this is just me. Is there a tax donation receipt automatically generated and sent to whomever is making a donation to GoFundMe, to one's GoFundMe page? How does that work?
I don't think so, because that the family would need to be a nonprofit in order for that to occur.
Okay, so
So
okay, so the GoFundMe platform, typically the donations that go into GoFundMe for a person and their
Yes.
medical bills or things like that,
Yes,
there is no tax deductible donation.
there is no tax deductible donation. There's a tribute widget on CaringBridge on everyone's page. If you made
Right.
a donation to CaringBridge, that's tax deductible, and
Yes.
we would send you they mail those out.
Yes. Okay.
But
I have done that. I have gotten an actual, now that you say that, I've donated to Caring Bridge on honor of people. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. I'm very curious about Health Well. Are you able to expand on them a little more?
Sure, I can. In fact, I've got the collateral right here. It's a relatively new partner.
Okay.
They're a wonderful organization. They have been around, I think, since 2004, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And I believe, based on the phone call that we recently had with them, they have given out 1 million grants. A lot of their money comes from pharma, but it's not necessarily, communicated on their site. And pharma does seem to be in the background, and not controlling anything that they do. So we've been really impressed with them, and we're very excited about adding them to Caring Bridge.
That's fantastic. Really, really awesome. I wanted to let everyone know too, for anyone who's not aware, Caring Bridge also offers printed materials. And we've ordered several different types of printed materials to give to patients and their families and their caregivers. And I also know that I know you support the Spanish language. Are there are there other languages that are supported by Caring Bridge?
We have Caring Bridge brochures,
Yes.
and those are free to anyone who wants to order them and share them with family caregivers and patients. They come in packs of 50, and we have a general brochure, a cancer brochure, and a pediatric brochure. Caring Bridge was in Spanish at one point, but it just wasn't used. But I'll tell you, I get asked all the time for that. Though Caring Bridge, the directional language is in English, you can use Google Translator and you can post and comment in any language.
Oh, wow. That's a great idea.
And so Caring Bridge is available in 244 countries and territories around the globe, which is basically everywhere, as long as people have access to a free internet.
Fantastic. I can't say enough about Caring Bridge, and I want to say thank you so much, Susan, for all of the hard work you're doing behind the scenes, and for sharing with us today. This platform does bring together community like Tracy and Jason were talking about, because sometimes people don't have community and they need to build it. And Caring Bridge can certainly help that process as well.
And
so thank you so much. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You as well. Take care now. Thanks,
You bet.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'd like to introduce Marianne Brudwick. Sorry, Marianne.
That's okay.
I've known Marianne for a very long time. And I asked her to speak today. She's going to share her and her family's story, but she's also going to share some other insights, which, is interesting. And I can talk about that after she speaks. Marianne married Rod Brudwick, the athletic and energetic boy next door. Oh, lucky you. At 18 years old, and found herself a caregiver to him 28 years later, when he suddenly was diagnosed with glioblastoma at the age of 47. Through that year-long journey and following his death in 2010, she learned how to press on, determined to keep her family together and her faith intact. Marianne is mom to 3 amazing growing children and has 1 precious grandson. Since 2011, she formed the Bellingham, Washington Brain Tumor Support Group and continues to facilitate this monthly meeting. She has a heart for those walking through the same arduous journey of brain cancer. She is currently employed as the HR manager at All American Marine in Bellingham. Marianne, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dellann. I hope you can hear me, and thank you for putting my slides up. I'm just going to mention a few things. I could go deeper in some things, but you can reach out to me later if you want some more information. Like she said, I'm the facilitator of the Bellingham, Washington Brain Tumor Support Group. And it began in 2011 and I first met Dellann, like she said, in 2010, when I attended a caregiver support group meeting at Swedish Hospital that she initiated. I was so grateful for that because I immediately felt the benefit of being with others there, like we're doing today, and we share a difficult journey. So Dellann encouraged us that were there. There's probably about 8 to 10 of us. She answered our questions the best that she could. That one meeting inspired me to start our local support group later on. And for those who have been through our local group and lost their loved ones, we also have a group, a secondary group that's called the Glee Club. And there's no singing involved. If you can imagine, Glee is short for glioblastoma. So the purpose of this group is to reconnect occasionally, just to talk about our past and share life as it is now. And these people have also been strong supporters of our past brain cancer walks. But my introduction to glio was actually through my friend Trish. And I think that's an amazing way to get introduced to glioblastoma. It was sort of from a distance, but she contracted it in 2003 and passed away in 2004. And so from the sidelines, I watched her and her family. She had 3 young boys and a husband go through the symptoms and treatment. She and I met through a women's Bible study group, and many of us helped her family in different ways. But little did I know it was my training ground for what was to come in our family. So our story involves, like Dellann said, my husband was diagnosed at 47 years old in June of 2009 after a weekend of small seizures and lightheadedness. Rod was the kind of guy who filled a room with light through his humor, energy, athleticism, and his large size. He was a coach for many youth sports teams in our community too. He worked out, exercised with great discipline, had a big heart, and was a devoted father with a never give up attitude. Our kids, Tyler, Katie, and Bo, were 12, 15, and 17 at the time of diagnosis. So we had a CT scan, and then things happened fairly quickly. And within 16 days, Rod had 3 brain surgeries. The first was the brain biopsy at our local hospital to confirm he had glioblastoma. The second surgery was 5 days later, a miraculous 3-tumor removal surgery by Dr. Foltz performed at Swedish Hospital in Seattle. His tumors were on the right side in the front, middle, and back of his head. So he was suffering symptoms on the left side. But the third surgery was the most difficult 11 days later when a major wound infection developed, and it required a portion of his skull to be removed, which now required that he wear a helmet whenever he walked or was transported anywhere. That was very humbling for my husband. So there was where our abnormal life began, and my husband's diagnosis rocked our world, broke our hearts, and definitely broke our pride. But we were indeed humbled and found ourselves in great need. The year ahead was filled with peaks and valleys of various kinds. But during that year, we all learned a lot about life, love, and the power of faith. So the treatment itself, like I said, we were happy to have Dr. Foltz as our neurosurgeon and head of our medical team. It brought us a lot of comfort to be at an advanced brain tumor center. So I always encourage people to seek help at a place like that. Since it was 100 miles away, we spent a lot of time on the road, but ended up having radiation in Bellingham, thankfully, because it was just a few minutes from home. But after this third surgery, Rod came home on IV therapy for the infection. And then later, after that was completed, we had the usual radiation and oral chemodar, which began. And after a few months of that, we added in Avastin infusions. So I'd like to say a word about clinical trials here. Because early in our journey, we were open to going on to a trial, but only if Rod felt comfortable with it and could feel hopeful that the benefits outweighed the cost. But we didn't have much choice because no trials were available to him during that time. I think he just missed a window. A few years later, I learned from another caregiver about how her husband became severely ill after being on a trial. That trial was discontinued, but it left a bad taste in my mouth about trials in general. So you could say I was not exactly what you call a trial supporter at that time. But over the years and watching the people go through our local brain tumor support group, I have witnessed some of our members who participated in trials that have definitely outlived their life expectancy and with good quality of life. So my attitude has flipped around now over the years, and I wish there were more opportunities for trials for two reasons. The first is that trials do offer hope, and we desperately need hope for our loved ones going through this daunting disease, right? At least for an extension of life. And the second reason is because trials could lead us to a cure, and we definitely need hope for a cure. And the only way to get there is through trials. Unfortunately, because of the severity and short-term life expectancy of brain cancer, it is more difficult to set up and implement trials. Next slide is about broad symptoms, which probably are common to many of you, but I'm just going to name off several that we experienced. Not all at once. Some of these were spread out over our year. At the onset, headaches became intense, not right away, but right leading up to the first surgery. Seizures, fatigue, extreme at times fatigue, weakness, imbalance, vision impairment. On the left side, he lost some of his vision. A few hallucinations, disoriented, easily lost in familiar places, even at our home football stadium after the game, he didn't know how to get back to the car. He had personality and mood swings that could cause him to become depressed or short-tempered. And I think the steroids heightened that and took away his filter. So some of his words became harsher to us, not like his normal self. And there are some funny things that we've actually compared in our group through a brain tumor support group. Some of the normal tendencies he had became exaggerated, such as an excessive desire to buy things. And we sort of laugh about this in our group, although this can be a very serious problem. My husband would see a TV commercial and want to buy 10 pairs of sunglasses because he wanted to share them with all of his friends. And I was in the background going, no, we don't need to spend the money. It could also give excessive sarcasm, and he used sarcasm normally in his humor, but the excessive sarcasm was to a point where it could be hurtful. And then he had heightened fears or paranoia, like not wanting me to leave, or fear over the kids and what they were doing and would it bring them harm, and that type of thing. And of course, there are secondary symptoms, which can include heartburn, constipation, backaches, other things to deal with. And then next slide is about survival support system. And I love that who you've had on already today, because some of this crosses over with that. We definitely needed a good medical support team around us. And we did have a team of doctors that we could trust, though we had to filter through a few to find the right ones. I think I counted about 8 doctors involved in our case at one time, which is a lot to keep track of. A lot of appointments, a lot of little business cards to know who to contact for what. And then for spiritual support, super important to us because we're a Christian family anyway, but we invited our pastor to come visit our home regularly. And he, from the get-go, the night before the first surgery, he was there with us and comforted me too while I was in the waiting room. We welcomed others to pray for us, and we kept our church updated, and we spent a lot of time praying together in the home and individually, just pouring out our hearts to God. We read great faith-inspired books along with the Bible. Some of them were books for me personally to lift and refresh my spirit. They might be a good novel, or it might be a story, a documentary story about someone else that had been through a really severe journey and survived. Also had devotional books to read to my kids every night, because when Rod was in bed, I would pull them all together. You obviously worry about your kids, right? That could be a whole nother session. But I would bring them together and let them ask questions that were on their minds and try not to give them too much information, but just enough for what they needed. And they were at different ages too. So So our devotional books was a neutral way to give them something encouraging. And then I had books that I could read out loud to Rod at night after he went to bed, such as The Purpose-Driven Life, to encourage his heart. And these times became his favorite time of the evening, of the day, actually, and when he seemed to be most at peace. So I'm really thankful for those times. And then for the caregiver, you need physical support too, and physical wellness. I chose to continue to exercise my body, whether it was small amounts or a walk or whatever. It's not that I ever wanted to exercise. I already had an exercise regime, so that helped because I was already in the habit. But I felt so much better after I exercised and never regretted a workout or a walk. Taking care of my body physically helped me in other areas too, like emotional and mental well-being. I tried to take time to eat healthy foods, and I was cooking a lot for the family, so that was not too difficult. It's just trying to avoid eating out all the time is hard. And then trying to drink lots of water. I can't say that enough. And I know I didn't do that enough, but I encourage you to do that. I took no guilt naps whenever I could because caregivers need rest. And if you're not sleeping well at night, give yourself permission to take a nap. And then for social and emotional support, I leaned on family and friends around us. We've talked about that, how important that is today. And I kept them updated through a private email group, our main family and friends. So I didn't have to answer those 17 phone call messages I had at the end of the day. I didn't know about Caring Bridge back then, and I wish I had because I would have used it. I scheduled times for family and friends to visit, and I was the gatekeeper of the home and the schedule. So I sort of had control over that. And sometimes I had to say no to somebody at the door. It just was not good timing for a visit. I suggest keeping your visits from outsiders down to a minimum of 15 minutes, maybe half hour. But if it was beyond that, Rod would get extremely exhausted, but he wouldn't say anything and suffered for it afterwards. I accepted meals and offers to help from a variety of people in a variety of ways, from yard work to runs to Costco, to carpooling my kids to practice and games. And I had that, what I heard earlier was those 3 people. I knew who to call in an emergency. And those are crucial people that you can trust and count on. So I do encourage you to have that list. I also journaled nearly every day to let out my thoughts and my grief. Plus, bonus, Dellann, I had met, and she was willing to talk with me one-on-one. She was key in answering some of my hardest questions. And eventually, we called in hospice, and they were our support for me, as well as Rod, our final few weeks of his life. Rod passed away in June of 2010, almost exactly 1 year from diagnosis, at the end of our oldest son, Bo's high school graduation weekend. But he made it to graduation. He didn't make it to graduation, but he made it through that graduation day. So lastly, some lessons learned from all of this. And you will have takeaways. You may not be able to know what they are right now if you're in the middle of your journey, but you'll look back someday and realize how much you learned. And I heard this today also. When you love someone enough to commit to being their caregiver, it will require sacrifice. But love is worth it. You and your family can grow stronger because of this experience in a myriad of ways. So believe and keep your hope alive, regardless of the outcome. Also, let go of what is outside of your control and set your mind and energy on the things that you can do for your loved one. Accept help. We've heard that today too already. Don't try to do everything yourself. One of the hardest things I had to do was let go of having a friend give my daughter her sweet 16 birthday party only 6 days prior to her daddy's death. And also, don't give up on God or your faith when life gets hard. Instead, lean into it. My heart was so weary, but when I leaned into my faith, trusting God instead of fighting him, I learned I didn't have to know it all or do it all, and he filled in the gap. And then eventually, you can turn this experience of adversity around for good. Find ways to share and encourage others who are struggling as caregivers. There's a lot of caregivers out there, right? Listen to their stories of hardship It will boost and recharge your heart to give back, even if it's just listening, doing something useful with this journey that you're on. And if it's not today, then maybe someday. And lastly, my personal motto as facilitator for brain tumor support group is 2 words: simply be there. When someone shows up and listens to you, isn't it a treasure? And even though it's hard and sometimes emotional, well, okay, let's get real, a lot of times emotional, you can do the same for others and believe that God and good can come out of it. If you feel like giving up and giving in, I would just say, stay in the ring. And my husband would say, never give up. So there you go.
Thank you, Marianne. Well, I'm proud of you. And I know Rod is too.
Thank you.
Mhm. I have a question for you.
All right.
How does one take no guilt naps?
I love that question because I have talked to so many people. This isn't just about our brain cancer journey, that feel extremely guilty for giving up that time that they should be doing something else in the middle of the day. But for me, I found that if I can take a nap, and maybe not everybody's body is the same, obviously, if I can lay down for 20 or 30 minutes and relax my mind, and even if I don't get into a deep sleep, but I can relax, and then maybe put my timer on, say, okay, today I allow 30 minutes. And then when the bell rings or I wake up, I get up feeling so much better. It's kind of like the start of the day again. And my energy is reboosted, revitalized. And then I can go on and do the next thing. But usually about 2 o'clock, my energy is waning. And then I'm just going to continually go down. And there's one thing after another to do. Like the list is nonstop for what to do, especially if you're parenting, you got kids schedules, sports schedules. It was chaos. So I just gave myself permission to say, it's okay. Just take 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Maybe I have an hour today and I'll read a little bit in the middle of the day, but it can rejuvenate you and re-energize you.
Really great advice. As caregivers, we all know this. We typically don't take as great of care of ourselves as we do our loved one. And we need to, right? So you talked a little bit about you had to let go of pride, and you, not only you, excuse me, also likely Rod, likely your family. Do you want to talk about that just a little bit more?
Sure. And I will say, and if he was here today, he would say he was a prideful man. I think, no, I won't make a judgment about men in general. I think we all are prideful. You know, when we are self-sustaining, when we've worked hard to achieve a great career and we're at the, top of our game, we've got a family, a house, and all these wonderful things we've accumulated. And then we get knocked down, like, trauma can happen in a moment, right? Any day, anytime, to anyone. So Rod learned the hard way that, as things were taken away from him, and I think having your driver's license was one of the first things that was really hard on his ego. Like, I have to depend on somebody else to drive me everywhere. So he had to get used to those things. And then that was to me a process of humility and letting go. And I saw him do that. At first, it was just more like an angst and anger. Like, I don't want it. I mean, this isn't fair. All those attitudes that come out of us. And, eventually we needed a handicap sticker. But then we also started looking at other people differently. And we started to realize, wow, what they're going through is what we're going through. But we never really thought about it, So parking in a handicap spot and then watching other people park and get out with their handicap, you kind of go, I can relate a little bit more now. And I have more empathy for them. So it really served us well. It is a breaking process, but humility is funny because now humility is what I look for when I interview people for a job. Because if they have a prideful heart, it can lead to more argumentative, employees. A humble heart is more accepting of things and willing to work as a team, that they don't know all the answers, they don't have all the answers, but they, are valuable. I love humble hearts. So lesson learned.
I thank you for saying that. There is definitely truth to a lot of times with people who have been through a brain tumor diagnosis, a brain cancer diagnosis, either as the patient or the caregiver. Definitely life is looked at differently. And usually those folks have more compassion for others. They're forever changed.
Right.
Forever. And I think that's what you might mean by a humble heart, correct? It's similar. It's similar.
I look at you, Dellann, because I mean, obviously, you're not sharing your whole story with us today, but the reason the nonprofit started was because of you and Chris's humble hearts. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to work with you on creating, if I could, a playbook for creating what you did with the Bellingham Brain Tumor Support Group and the do you call it the Glee Club, right? GLI?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to work with you to create a playbook because I think other people can use that kind of support and they may not have that resource. So they may have the energy to create it themselves, to create more community, not only for themselves, but for others as well. So let's work on that together. I appreciate it so much. You talked about making through this brain cancer journey, making your exercise a priority, correct?
Definitely.
So it's a thing. I do actually, I've thought about this so much. I was training for a half marathon when my husband was diagnosed, and I do believe that all of that prior training gave me more stamina to be able to handle this and have, even though I was exhausted, it also gave me the energy I actually needed to care not only for my husband, but also for our two small children. And I, you know, we all hear how important exercise is, of course, et cetera, but there is really something to be said that if you are in an exercise routine and then something like this happens to your loved one, I think you really are better, not only prepared, but I think you said handling the stress, I think, but it's true. Exercise really, really helps. It also helps, I think, on the mental side as well. So thank you so much, Marianne. I really, really appreciate you sharing, and your lessons learned today were really important to all of us. So thank you. Marianne is open if anyone wants to continue the conversation with her. She is sharing her email address and her cell phone number, and she is available if anyone would like to reach out to her to discuss or talk about anything she's talked about a little more, or other topics as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for the privilege.
I would like to put up our slide, please, for Amanda Goodstadt. And Amanda, hi, there's your slide for you. Amanda, are you here?
I'm here.
Hello.
Evening.
Amanda is with Triage Cancer, and she is their senior staff attorney. She works on the organization's legal and financial navigation program. She also develops resources and presents educational programs on cancer-related legal issues, which we all really care about. Prior to joining Triage Cancer, Amanda spent 12 years counseling seniors and caregivers about Medicare and related benefits. There have been several people who have registered for this particular caregiver self-care webinar who have had Medicare and Medicaid questions. So some of those may come up, but if not, we know you're going to show us where those resources are. So Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, now we're back recording. This whole day was just amazing. Everyone shared such good information, such tools, and such inspirational stories, and also heartbreaking stories, right? So I just think this community is really helping each other by gathering together. All right, and just a reminder that within our offices is our clinical research coordinator and patient navigator, Shreya, Prakash, who you heard from earlier. And her job is to help you with those clinical trials, letting you know different options that are out there, putting you together with specialists directly, as well as if you do provide and sign our medical release form and do provide your medical information and your any kind of your pathology or your genomic testing, et cetera, we'll actually go on a hunt for you and look for clinical trials that look like you qualify for. We'll start regionally and then we'll broaden it out. We'll have some conversations with you and see if there's something you would like to pursue, and then we'll make a direct connect for you to either the principal investigator for that clinical trial or the medical site that's closest to wherever you live that is also enrolling patients into that clinical trial. So just know that we're there to help with that. There's my contact information. You're all always welcome to contact me through the End Brain Cancer Initiative, through my email or my cell phone. That's fine. We are having a second caregiver self-care series in November 1. There's two things we're going to address. I already have my speakers for them, so I'm kind of excited about that. One is going to be presented by a neurosocial worker. So she works with patients with brain tumors and brain cancer. She also works with their caregivers and their families. And one of the things she's going to be addressing is something we all know, so to be very, very true, is how to escape caregiver burnout. Because, let's face it, it's a real thing. And so I'm really looking forward to those tools as well and learning from her. The other thing that is already on the agenda is we have a neuro-oncologist who is actually Major Gregory with the Department of Defense, sharing with us of the very real anxiety that comes with your next scan. We all know, oh, it's 2 weeks away. Ooh, it's 3 weeks away. It's 3 days away. We all know that there's a lot of anxiousness that happens with that. So he's going to be presenting about how to cope with that, how to help cope with that, I should say. And so that should be very exciting as well. We're still, let me know if there is a particular topic you'd like us to also cover and bring in a specialist to speak about. Many of you did write in when you registered about different topics that you would like to hear and learn more about. So I'll definitely be reviewing those as well and seeing if I can bring in a speaker to address those issues. But you guys are fantastic. Thanks for your support. And just know that we're here for all of you as well. Thank you so much. Again, I want to thank our sponsors. This is our supporters of a lot of our patient disease education that we do. Today's event is brought to you by Novacure and Servier, but it's also brought to you by many of those that you heard from today. Triage Cancer, Aware Coaching, Great Purpose Productions, Caring Bridge, and WIM Social, among some others, as well as our individual donors.